All right, welcome to the Snowflake Sports Podcast. It is 9:11 Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, June 16th, and I'm joined by a good friend, Joe Crespo. How you doing, Joe?
Doing well, just chilling. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Doing it up in the cut. So we're gonna talk today, pretty much mostly about the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And first, we're gonna start with Kyrie's statement about the NBA return and how he's kind of skeptical. Skeptical. Yeah, there we go. I can't speak right now. About the NBA return with the whole movement going on. And then we're going to dive into the Rayshard Brooks shooting in Atlanta at a Wendy's. What was it? Last Friday, they had a phone call, I think, with a decent amount of NBA players, maybe 70 or 80. And they kind of, Kyrie was kind of spearheading this campaign. It was just why are we going to play? Why, this movement is happening and we're seeing actual change. We might just be a distraction with it. And then you saw people like Dwight Howard come out, in support of him, and kind of other players that, understand how, maybe if we're watching basketball, it might be a distraction, might take people away from the protests. It might, other people might think it just went away. I guess, Joe, what were your general thoughts about, this phone call?
So, I mean, in general, Kyrie's points that the NBA returning could be a distraction to the Black Lives Matter movement and trying to get reform with policing and whatnot in the U.S., that's a legit, point that he made. Right, that is the more that's going on, and the more that's going on, the less focus there can be on Black Lives Matter and getting reform done. And I mean, I think that's part of the reason why there's so much protesting about reform, and reform is actually slowly, little by little getting done, is because there's really not much else to focus on since we're barely recovering from the COVID-19 virus. In the U.S., we're still dealing with that, and people can put all their efforts into it. I know some people that have been furloughed that they're going to protest every single day, and I guess the NBA coming back wouldn't affect those people per se, but it would still take the focus off from the movement for sure. I think objectively it would, right?
Yeah, definitely. I just love everything about this conversation because it just seemed like everyone was happy about returning, and now it's just oh wait, let's see a different opinion, and it's just as we've seen, I don't know, throughout these past couple weeks, I guess just forever. The struggle of people of color endure for just existing, and it's just now I feel it's in the center of attention, it's finally getting the momentum that it's needed for pretty much forever. And if if the NBA is playing, people won't be protesting. Like you said, if you're furloughed, I feel you could go out and do it. The only thing limiting you is COVID-19, but I don't know, maybe you just think you're this movement is more important than your life. I totally understand anyone going to these protests. So my only concern with this was he's a vice president of the NBA Players Association. So why didn't he bring this up earlier? But I guess better late than never. And
it's tough though, because it is crazy, like you said. It's crazy because now it's real. Okay, the NBA is coming back, or it's set to come back, and there's an actual plan and everything. And now Kyrie's being nah, let's not do it.
Yeah.
When it's all being set in place and set in stone, and it's it's already the concrete's already drying. Kyrie, you're bringing this up now, so it's bad timing. But he, like I said, he has a point. Do Do I agree with him completely? Not necessarily. I think, like I said, objectively, he's correct. It'll take away from the conversation. But how much, right? How much would it? Would it completely stop the progress that's been being made? Yeah, been being made. Like, I'm not sure about that, and just because the NBA is back doesn't mean that everything's just gonna stop. Like, everything's gonna go back to, pre-COVID protests, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think those things will be a thing. I hope not. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially because that was like Friday and today's Tuesday, which it almost seems like forever from just the way that the news kind of works. And it's not even like, it doesn't even sound like people completely want to sit out. They just want like more to happen, I guess. Like, and I just feel like they need to be more, if they're actually willing to sit out, and like a decent amount of them want to sit out, and they're like star players, as bad as that kind of sounds, but like they need to come up with more concrete like definitions. It's like, okay, we want to see police defunding by 15% across the country, or like ending qualified immunity, or just like certain things that they could actually do before they return. Then instead of just having this vague thing happen, because like the next season's I don't even know when 2021 starts, but like I don't think you're gonna solve systemic racism in like 2 months, or say even 6 months if they start in December of next year. So It's just like, how much can you do by not play? I don't know.
No, that's a good point though.
Yeah.
Sitting out and not continuing the season because you don't want to take away from the protests and progress is like, it's not like 2 months probably isn't gonna affect that very much. It's hard to tell, but
yeah. Either way, I'm for whatever they want to do, honestly. Like, if they want to play and further their message by playing, like, do that. And if they don't, like, do that. Like, they can do whatever they want, I think.
They can do whatever they want, huh?
Yeah.
Did you see what Kyrie apparently said today, or was talking to players about today? Like, just happened like an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Like, news was coming out about it.
No, what was that?
Kyrie was saying we should start our own league.
Oh. The Kyrie League. Let's go.
Kyrie was talking to players saying we should start our own league. Something like that. I don't know.
So did you ever see, what was it, High Flying Bird? It's like a Netflix movie.
No.
It's with, I don't know if you watched American Vandal Season 2. I think his name is Melvin Gregg. He's like,
Melvin Gregg.
Yeah. He's like a NBA. He's like, I think he's coming out of college.
He was like a prospect out of high school or something.
Yeah. And then
in that season.
Yeah. So like in this movie, he's like a prospect, but like the NBA is locked out, and he like hasn't signed a contract yet. So he's just, it's kind of like the whole idea of like, what if we just kind of used phones and like Instagram and like made our own kind of like videos and our own like pickup games, and like made it almost like making your own league, and just like kind of taking it away from the NBA. So I wonder, maybe Kyrie just like watched that movie and was like inspired by that.
You probably saw that. It was like, we can do this, guys. Just get your iPhones, put one on a tripod somewhere back. Like, we'll get a drone, someone flying a drone.
Yeah.
Get some shots from above, and we can just air it on YouTube or something.
Yeah. We'll just play 21, Not even
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, that would be interesting. I would enjoy that. I think a lot of people would enjoy that. Just like pickup games between NBA players, like you saw the Last Dance, of course, when they were talking about when Michael Jordan was filming Space Jam, and he like, one of his stipulations was that he needed to have a court and this and that, and then he would invite all his buddies in the NBA to come and play pickup games. And I believe Reggie Miller, when he was interviewed in the documentary, he said that those were some of the most competitive games, and none of it was like recorded really, or it was just they were just pickup games. So like my mind goes to that, where it's just like intense games where dudes are just playing, having fun, but it's being filmed.
Yeah, exactly. Like call your own fouls,
Yeah, exactly. Call your own fouls, exactly.
I'd watch it.
With the bullshit of the refs or anything.
Yeah, exactly. No stupid charges by Kyle Lowry.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
maybe Kyrie's onto something. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, honestly, I think anyone would watch that, especially if you're an NBA fan. You would definitely turn that on.
It definitely wouldn't be a league, though. Gotta say that disclaimer. It's not going to be a league.
No.
Not a real one.
Yeah. So Steven Jackson had a great video the other day, and he's been more of an activist nowadays, but or I guess probably even before this. I honestly don't know. I apologize, but he's saying that white owners of the NBA haven't really come out to say anything about the Black Lives Matter movement, and they just kind of hide behind like the NBA or team statement. I saw that Mark Larcy of the Milwaukee Bucks, I think, walked with Giannis, which, I mean, in Milwaukee, it's one of the most segregated cities in the United States. But why do you think more owners haven't really come out to a movement that's so important to their players?
Well, I don't want to say it so blatantly, but because they're rich and white, like vast majority.
Yeah.
Like I looked it up, and there's only 3 minority owners. Michael Jordan of the Bobcats, Vivek Ranadive, he's Indian, he's an owner of the Kings, and Joseph Tsai of the Nets. He has a share in the Nets. Yeah. So there are like everybody else is white who owns the NBA or the franchises in the NBA. So first off, this isn't their fight. Second off, they're rich. These guys are billionaires. This stuff doesn't affect them at all. So, basically, they're not affected by any of this. Like, sure, their players are affected. Their players' families are potentially affected by, police brutality and everything. But these guys don't have to worry about shit. So it makes sense. I mean, I agree with Steven Jackson. The owners aren't doing anything. At least it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like any of them are doing anything. Now, Michael Jordan, him and Team Jordan have pledged, $100 million donated over the next 10 years to black or minority or whatever charities or movements or whatever.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like that's huge. Like $100 million.
Yeah,
it's not right away, but still over 10 years, $10 million a year. That's a lot of money. That's a big contribution. And I haven't seen personally any news of any other owners doing anything, saying anything. You said Mark Larcy walked with Giannis. I wonder if Giannis had to beg him. To go,
maybe, or maybe he's doing it because Giannis' contract is up in a year, and he's just wanting him to stay.
There you go. That's an ulterior motive of, showing solidarity, but maybe he doesn't care about that. Maybe he cares about showing Giannis that he wants him here, wants him in Milwaukee. So, I mean, that's kind of pessimistic, but I think when you're dealing with rich white team owners and billionaires, it's a fact that they're not the ones that have to deal with the issues that everybody else has to deal with. So it makes sense to me that they're not really showing support themselves about these issues. And also they have a business stake, so they got to deal with backlash from racists if they, if they do support the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement and reform and everything. They might get less. I mean, they'll basically lose some money because of that. Like, business doesn't work with movements like this, and I it's not that I don't blame them. It's just that's how it is. And I wish there were more owners that were willing to take a stand, like outright in their own, without hiding behind their teams.
Yeah. I think the easy solution, and you kind of, like, this is just your blatant statement at the beginning where they're just rich or white, but, like, obviously you can see with Michael Jordan, if they're, like, a minority owner, like, they'll actually care, because it's a concern for, like, him and his family and just people close to him. I feel like he could really connect. So maybe there should just be less white owners. That's a good start, I think, especially in a league that's, like, predominantly African American. Like,
yeah, that's another thing.
It's just it'd be better if there were more minority owners. So, but I don't really understand it because I feel like it's so popular, and I guess also just like I don't understand how you can watch like the NBA and be racist. Like it's just I don't see that concept, or just like being like superior, like I don't like this race because they're like everywhere. I just so like I don't know what the political backlash would be if they said something. Like I feel like it's so like popular now that like it's almost like you're seeing Roger Goodell saying that they made a mistake. Like I think he said either today or yesterday that teams should sign Colin Kaepernick now. Like what? Like
I mean, like that's a whole conversation in its own.
Yeah.
Its own.
That's true.
That's but you're right. It's everything's changing, and even like you said, Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
He's saying, I mean, he supported all the protests. He's supporting reform and this and that, and that's huge. That dude gets paid like $40 million a year or something.
Yeah.
He's rich as fuck.
Yeah.
I was gonna say to your point about the potential backlash, NASCAR. I think it's interesting that NASCAR has come out and banned the Confederate flag. They had a driver that had a Black Lives Matter car.
Yeah.
They're like seem like they're backing everything, which is crazy because you would think NASCAR is reserved for racist white people, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
There's one black driver, I think, in NASCAR, and he's the one that had the Black Lives Matter car, I believe. But like, they had that one driver that quit because they banned the Confederate flag, and it's like, bro, we don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck. It's great.
Yeah, you probably saw that.
I love it
too, where NASCAR replied to that guy that quit, and was like, we had to look you up to see who you were, so we don't really. You and your like dozen fans will be mad that you're not ready.
Was that a real tweet? Because I just saw a screenshot, so I was like, I don't know if I believe this, but I didn't look into it. That's why I didn't want to bring that up. But
okay.
I mean, if that's a real tweet, that's pretty powerful.
I think I saw a screenshot too, so maybe I should actually fact check that before I bring it up. But I just thought it was great. But yeah, so it's like NASCAR is almost being more upfront than like NBA owners, and it's just like, I saw like the Rangers took forever to come out and have some statement, and basically like every business had said some statement one another where like white silence is bad, Black Lives Matter, we should have been behind this movement, blah blah blah, and just like it would the Madison Square Garden one was so like vague. It was basically just like they made like making no statement was almost better than the statement they made.
What did they say? Do you remember?
No, I wish I had it. Look it up. But
what was the gist of it?
Yeah, it was just like didn't talk about like Black Lives Matter at all. It almost said like there's two sides of the coin. And it was almost like the whole like Charlottesville like Trump thing where they were
they're good people on both sides.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not something you want to be saying nowadays.
Yeah. No, not at all. I don't know, I'm just baffled by it. Like I know they're rich white owners that don't really have problems or can't understand these problems, but you're banking off the backs of these players where it's obviously a concern for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think what was it? The New York Times said it's like 30% more popular to be behind the Black Lives Matter movement than it was, you know, I think it would be more. So I don't know.
That's nice.
I wish there would be more. So I
Mm-hmm.
pulled up the statement that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
every one of us has a role to play in creating a more just and equal society, where there is no racism, bigotry, violence, or hate. We stand with all who act for positive change. So no reference to Black Lives Matter, but I guess it does state no racism, bigotry. It's just
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like they Wikipedia it, and this
I
was
think
like
they're trying hard to not take any sides.
exactly, and like James Dolan is a large donor for the Donald Trump campaign, so
Mm-hmm.
this almost kind of makes sense.
He probably was just like, all right, tweet something that doesn't take a side, but like sounds good.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want anybody going after us.
Yeah, or my jazz band. So.
Oh my god.
All right, so Austin Rivers kind of came out and said that he loves Kyrie and he understands his points, but that they can kind of play basketball and use basketball as a platform to progress the movement. And then smaller time players like Ed Davis brought up that Kyrie and Dwight Howard can afford to sit because of how much money they made off of previous contracts. They're basically 1% of NBA players. So I guess if you had to pick a side, like play or not play, which one would you be on?
In my view, I would be on the side of playing. I don't think I was very specific in my response earlier, like in the beginning of this. But I understand Kyrie and it, objectively makes some sense, but I think that playing would be better than sitting out. Because it's not like you're gonna distract everybody, like you're just gonna go play basketball, that's it, right? Like you can still use your voice, you can still use the platform to try to progress ideas or reform or whatever. I don't know if there's any plans for them to have like commercials or something that are like geared towards equality and Black Lives Matter, stuff like that. Who knows? I just think, and that point that Kyrie and other players that seem to be for sitting out or not starting the season again or whatever, restarting it, they seem to be older, more wealthy players that like star players, right?
Yeah.
So it does hurt them. Not playing doesn't hurt them as much as players that don't get paid as much or rookies or whatever. So I mean, I think that I just think it would be better for them to play. I think they should progress with the season. I think Kyrie brought up a good point, that they don't want to detract from Black Lives Matter, the movement, reform, what have you, but I just think there are ways to overcome that or try to lessen the impact of distraction.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with you. I think when I first heard this, I was just like, yeah, no one should play. We should all just like be active in these protests and just this whole movement. But it's just like the only reason that they're not playing is because of COVID-19. Like they didn't just like stop playing because of all these massive protests. And honestly, like these massive protests are probably because everyone's been cooped up inside and just got like really angry.
Partially.
Yeah.
Partially.
But it's just like you've seen so many instances of the NBA like confronting racism while playing. Like they've worn Can't Breathe shirts for Eric Gardner. Like they wore hoodies with Trayvon Martin when they were warming up. They wore their shirts inside out so it didn't show the logo in protest of Donald Sterling. So it's just like they can do both. And I feel like if it's on TV, right, you could have like in the pregame, you could be like, we stand with Black Lives Matter. We care about this movement. We want actual reform. We want cuts to like less police brutality, less in the police budgets, more for social issues, other stuff like that. So I think they could obviously do both, and it's just like there's so many like players who aren't stars that kind of need the money or like need to, maybe they're on a contract year and they need to kind of prove that they still have it. I mean, you could probably have highlights from the first 3 quarters of the season to get that extension, but like if there's a playoffs and maybe you weren't having a good part of that season, maybe you could pick it up in at least like this 8-game regular season and stuff. So I don't know if certain players don't want to play, like, then don't play. Like, you have your own platform. Like, everyone has their own platform now, so you could work on that if that's truly like the most important thing to you.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring up too that, like you said, the only reason the NBA stopped the season or paused it or whatever was because of COVID. It wasn't because of anything else. And I watched a video of Stephen A. Smith responding to Kyrie's claim or statement, or that he didn't want to start the season or whatever, or restart it, that they shouldn't play. And I kind of agreed with this point where he said, it's kind of like if players don't want to play because they don't want to risk their health or their family's health, that's a legitimate reason. But that's completely different from just not wanting to play because you don't want to distract a movement. So it's kind of, I don't know, if players don't want to play because they don't want to get sick or get their families potentially exposed, like that's one thing. But then, like you said, if players don't want to play because they don't want to support or they don't want to detract from the movement or whatever, that's their decision. That shouldn't affect anybody else that wants to play.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
the
NBA came out with if you decide to not come back, whether it's you're concerned about your health or other things, you have to do it by the end of June or something, and then you get like 1/92 of your income for every game you miss or something, which seems like nothing. So it's almost like enticing them to not play. But I mean, I don't know. It's millions of dollars, so 1/92 of like $1 million is probably still what, 10 grand or something. I guess it's still a significant amount of that.
It's like a decent amount. It's not a ton, but it's a decent amount.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, I think that covers. Do you have any other thoughts on just this whole calls and the NBA return or anything?
Kyrie's always going against the grain.
Yeah.
He's always going against the grain.
Yeah.
When I first heard about that statement, I was just like, man, you are crazy. And then I looked into it and I was like, okay, he's kind of got a point, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I think
that's his like character. I feel like.
Yeah, it's just being weird. That's just like Kyrie, just being out there. And I think this blew
contrarian.
Up. Yeah, exactly. This blew up because it was Kyrie. Like if this was like, I don't know, Al Horford or like Joel Embiid. Well, I don't know. Joel Embiid's a huge like Twitter presence, so maybe not him. But if it's just like, I don't know, some other star that's not Kyrie, I feel like this doesn't get as much attention.
Oh, absolutely. People would just blow it off and be like, man,
yeah,
don't even give him time. Don't even give him attention.
Yeah. So I guess just some more tragic news, and I guess just with the whole Black Lives Matter movement. So Rayshard Brooks was shot and killed at a Wendy's. What was it? Friday night. Was it June 12th, I believe? And the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office declared that as a homicide yesterday. I guess to give any background, to give the background of the story if you haven't heard it, the police were called to Wendy's late Friday night after falling asleep at the wheel in the drive-thru lane. The altercation started off pretty tame at the beginning, but when the police officers tried to make the arrest, Rayshard struggled with the officer and took his taser, and he's running away and kind of turns towards the officer, like kind of, but not really, before the officer shoots a fatal shot that kills him. So another person of color passing away at the hands of the police, in a situation that could have been handled much more delicately. I guess, just what are your general thoughts about this altercation?
It's a tough thing to watch and read about and see. And I mean tough in the way that Rayshard Brooks didn't deserve to die, in my opinion. He didn't deserve to die. I think there were some actions that he took that led to it, but I think the officers deciding to shoot and basically kill him was wrong, and I don't know, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, because I'm like, damn, he shouldn't have like resisted the arrest, he shouldn't have done that. And a lot of people on like I feel like the all lives matter side or whatever tend to say. Yeah. That's what they tend to say, is that you shouldn't do anything, you shouldn't resist, you shouldn't blah blah blah, talk back, and which I sort of agree with. So in this instance, I'm like, why, like, Rayshard, you shouldn't have done that. But then again, he was impaired, he was like drunk, right? I don't know how drunk, because they didn't really, in the video at least, they didn't say, or the dash cam video, what was it, body cam?
Yeah.
And say they didn't tell him, oh, this is your level, you're like too drunk, blah blah blah. All they said was you're too drunk to drive. We're gonna arrest you. We're gonna take you to the whatever. We're gonna arrest you. Yeah. And that's when they went to arrest him. That's when they started resisting. When he started resisting, it's crazy that everything was so calm up until they went to put the handcuffs on him.
Right, yeah.
Everything was so calm until they went to put the cuffs on him, and then he started struggling with them. He did take their taser, which is... that's a little... I don't know, that's like a threatening move, like thing to do. I think one big thing was that when he was running away, the cop, and this is a big issue that I have with it too, is that the cop just like decided to shoot at him, and they were in like the next to the drive-thru, right? So there was a big line of cars, and there was like cars that were in the line of fire. Oh, right. Yeah. Like he could have potentially shot someone in a car. Like there could have been a casualty that way. And that's part of what I like really denounce about this too, is that first of all, they just decided to shoot him after it all, and they decided to shoot with cars in the back, like behind where Rayshard was, and that's another thing to me that's like needs reform, because cops should know, and that happens too. There's a lot of people that they get hit with, they're just a bystander, or they're in their car or whatever, and they get hit and killed sometimes, not doing anything. They're just close to where something's happening, and I think cops need to be more aware of that.
Yeah, that's definitely, like you said, there's cars like right there, like someone might be parked or something, or just like hanging out, and you could
they're in like the drive-through line.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. What if he's like running through that way? Are you still gonna shoot him like in front of like another car, and you miss and you fatally shoot someone else? Like,
yeah. In the first video I watched, it was from a lady in the passenger side of a vehicle. She was recording.
Oh, gotcha.
And it was like you hear the shots, and they were out of the picture, out of the video, and the lady says like, "We got kids here. We got kids here."
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like that's true. That's legitimate. Like there are people, not even just kids, but there are people in their cars at the Wendy's. They can't do anything, and you're shooting in their direction. Like that's dangerous.
Yeah.
As fuck.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's just like, I don't know. So it's a Wendy's, right? Like, and he's drunk. Like he's not in his car, and I guess like the
that's
highest,
another thing too. Yeah.
The highest level concern is you might get tased. Like that kind of sucks. But don't officers get trained on getting tased? And wouldn't they be understand the feeling? And you have like a partner. Like I'm pretty sure he had a partner with him, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I don't think it's the end of the world. Like so that's why you don't go and like shoot him. But I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like this was like when you watch the video beforehand and when it's like calm, he's talking to him. Like he's clearly pretty drunk, and he fell asleep like at the wheel in a drive-through. Like he shouldn't be driving.
Was he in the drive? I don't know if he was in the drive-through.
I think he was in the drive-through, and that's why they called it, because it was just like, what is this guy doing? He's just like not. Like, he fell asleep at the wheel, so it's just like that's what like started this whole altercation. Then I think they wanted to do a breathalyzer test on him, and then I didn't see the next part. I only saw that beginning of that part, and then the kind of the shooting. But I assume that he took it, or
yeah, he did.
He did, okay. And then they determined that he was drunk and was going to arrest him, and we got all the rest. Yeah, so I get your point about the whole mixed feelings things, because he is, kind of breaking the law and kind of running away, but like he doesn't really deserve to die. Like you see all these like white supremacist like shooters like just get away scot-free with like an AK, like, or like Seattle when like with all these protests, like I just like ran into the crowd, shot someone, and the police just kind of let him come to them, which like granted, like they can't really, to your point, they can't really shoot into a crowd of protesters because they could easily shoot someone else, right?
Someone
like,
innocent.
Yeah, exactly. So like it was probably good that they didn't do that. But it's just like you see so many of these instances where they just straight up treat like black and people of color differently than they do like white people. So I think that's just why this movement is getting so much traction. And it's just sad because I feel just kind of numb to this. It's just like, oh, like another one. I think
it's just there was like another.
Yeah, exactly. There was some lady that was like protesting, and then she went missing. I forget her name, and then like was found dead like a couple days ago or something.
That wasn't even like they don't know what happened. I mean, people are saying that she had like went to the protest, and then also she had been protesting, and then also tweeted about getting sexually assaulted, and so maybe it was one of her assaultants or whatever, assaulters that like got her, like killed her or something. Like that's a potential. There's been multiple quote unquote suicides by hanging, potential lynchings that like there were 2 in the LA area that happened this past weekend that the cops ruled almost instantaneously as suicides, but these 2 black men were hanging from trees.
Yeah.
And in one of those matters, apparently the cops were saying, people were, giving backlash saying, how are you going to say it's a suicide? You're not even looking into it. Because once they rule it as something, they're just going to be like case closed.
Yeah. And
barely look into it. So people were complaining about that, and then now finally, I think it was yesterday or something, they announced like, okay, we're not going to declare it a suicide. We're going to take that declaration away, and we're going to investigate this. And there apparently are video cameras in that area that could have potentially seen what happened. So there's nothing been released yet, but I mean, hopefully there's video that comes out that can show what actually happened, because I mean this is insane.
Yeah.
I don't think any black person would go to a tree and hang themselves. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and wasn't I forget who the first person was, but it was like by a city hall like building
Yeah,
or some city
I
building,
think that was the one in Palmdale. I don't know. I don't remember all the names, but
right? It's
yeah, I
just
think
that just seems like sketchy.
that's fishy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because
That's fishy.
if you'd hang yourself on a tree, you'd want to do it like almost in the middle of nowhere. Like you wouldn't want to get caught almost doing it, and then like someone catches you, calls the cops, and then you don't do it. I don't know.
Mhm.
And like
Yeah, true.
how would no one see this if it's like on a street that's I mean I don't know Palmdale really, so like maybe it's more of a like bedroom community and people aren't out later at night, but it's just I don't know. It just it's just sad to see like lynching exist in the
Mhm.
21st century. Like this, we should be better than this. Our society should progress better than this.
Exactly.
So, but like I don't know, it just seems dumb, and I just hope like this whole movement started in July 2013. I just like I had to look that up because I thought it was more like 2015 with like Michael Brown and all that stuff. And
Wasn't 2013 the Eric Garner?
Oh, probably, possibly.
It was.
But right, it's just like that's like 7 years
14.
ago, and like there's been some movements because like the Michael Brown ones in Ferguson, like I've heard or I watched some documentary on Hulu that went into like a deep dive of the protests, and it was shot like 2 years ago, so they kind of dealt with like the aftermath, and like police actually like walk outside their cars and like stroll in the neighborhood. Like before, they used to just kind of sit in their cars, and like that's kind of what you want police to do if there is like a police department is like understand your neighborhoods, like serve and protect them, kind of know your neighbors. And I just feel like we haven't, especially in
Community
like
policing.
Cities.
That's how it should be. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like ideal. Like people should know the communities that they're policing. A lot of people they say that police should come from the communities that they police. So it shouldn't be people that live somewhere else that at the end of the day they go drive to whatever suburb that they live in and don't have to deal, They just have their own life somewhere else, and then the next day come to like an urban area, and then they have to there's a disconnect.
Yeah,
there,
absolutely.
Yeah. So they don't have to like deal with consequences of issues that they could potentially create because they don't live in that area, so they don't have to worry about stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. And like I don't know, I just keep seeing all this stuff about police officers making a ton of money off of like overtime and just like, and I always thought that like if a police officer didn't live in a certain area, like they just couldn't afford to do it off their salary. Like I've heard like San Francisco, like whatever the San Francisco PD salary is, they can't like actually live comfortably in San Francisco, which makes sense because it's ridiculous.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah.
But it's just like I feel like it's almost the other way around in like everywhere else. Maybe not LA or like New York or Chicago, but it's just like they don't want to live there. They want to live in some suburb with like better schools and like almost like a white enclave or something. But I don't know. So I guess are you more optimistic or I guess pessimistic that these protests will lead to more change?
I've been optimistic for a while about these. I've been going to protests here in LA for the past 3 weeks.
Solid.
And, everybody's, mostly everybody's wearing their masks and being pretty safe. I actually there was a Pride protest.
Oh, nice.
It was like half Pride, half Black Lives Matter on this past Sunday. And it was really cool because it was the gay community and the black community coming together and protesting with Black Lives Matter. And they were just, I don't know if you've ever been to Pride or seen Pride, but there's just a lot of people wearing rainbow flags and putting on their makeup and stuff, and then also blasting like music and stuff. But then there were also a lot of people chanting like Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace, stuff like that. Signs everywhere. But there were also people there like giving out free masks, free like having hand sanitizer for everybody and stuff. So that was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. There was like, I don't know, probably 10, 20,000 people. It was crazy.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
There's a lot of people. But yeah, I've been going to a lot of protests, and I mean there has been some progress, right? Like George Floyd's killers got charged. They got arrested and charged. In LA, the mayor cut some of the budget from the police budget and putting it towards minority. What's the word? Towards minority like things. I don't know, but even though it's only like it's a small amount. See, I think there still needs to be change. Of course, there needs to be more accountability. Like Breonna Taylor's the cops that killed her have not been arrested as of now. But they even passed a law saying that they can't do no-knock raids and they have to be in marked cars and stuff like that. Like,
yeah. That's
like there's
ridiculous,
still
right?
there's still justice. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's still justice that needs to be served, you know. So I think the protests have been succeeding. We just need to, I mean, the Kyrie's point, people need to focus on it more, and because it's gonna take time. But I'm optimistic about it, seeing as we've already progressed a little bit so far, and it's only been like 3 weeks, so just gotta keep at it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you are, but it sounds like a very interesting like Pride Week, Black Lives Matter. Like that just seems like such a cool vibe.
Well,
I don't know.
It was supposed to be Pride on Sunday, like just the Pride Parade, and then apparently Black Lives Matter wanted to have a protest as well. So then I think Pride had like, my girlfriend knows way more about it, but I don't know. Apparently the Pride had the people that were organizing the Pride Parade had like asked the cops to be like there to like, you know, block off the area and everything, and Black Lives Matter was like, nah, don't. Like, nah.
Nice.
We don't need them there. And then so it was more so like Black Lives Matter, because I think the people that were organizing Pride like were like kind of like dropped away, but people still showed up for Pride and everything.
Gotcha.
It just wasn't like a parade. It was more like a protest, but people were like, you know, jovial and
gotcha. Yeah.
dancing sort of. It was really, really weird.
Sounds like
it was
LA.
not your typical protest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at all. So.
Yeah.
But it was still a good time. It was still fun, and it was still like, I think it was good.
Still important
for
too.
the movement. Yeah.
I mean, it's two
Solidarity.
disenfranchised. Yeah, exactly. It's two disenfranchised groups that can come together and understand each other's struggles, even if it's not the same. Just understand, I guess, both of those.
Yeah.
Struggles. Yeah. So being Puerto Rican or Puerto Rican heritage, and someone that's grown up in Rochester, New York, which is also one of the most segregated cities in the United States. I guess, have you experienced racial profiling with the police?
I think I've been lucky where I haven't been like approached by cops in that way. But I did go to a city school in the like hood in Rochester. I went to Wilson, which, you know, is not a good area where they are off of Genesee Street. And I don't know, I haven't really witnessed it firsthand necessarily, not like brutality in that area like when I was in high school or anything, but I just know I mean, my school was like 60 or 70% black. I just know that that people that I know have dealt with things like police brutality or like getting pulled over, and there's a lot of issues because there's more police presence in the hood, in those types of areas, lower income, lower economical areas. So I just know that they have to deal with more things like that. And there have been a lot of, I want to pivot to defunding the police. There are a lot of people clamoring for police to be defunded. And I'm sure you've seen that, right?
Yeah.
You're aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking there was a quote, or AOC, Alexandria or Ocasio-Cortez, she tweeted out like a few days ago, saying to people that don't understand like defund the police or whatnot, like, oh, what does defunding the police mean? She said that it means having police presence like it is in the suburbs, where you don't really have to deal with it, like, because police in the urban areas are like, it's heavy, the presence is heavy, they're always patrolling, always out, and when you're in the suburbs, they're not so much. People get to live their lives in peace, and I kind of agree with that, where I think there should be sort of a less presence in those areas. I think it kind of leads to, just like at the protests with police being there, it kind of leads to escalation. I think sometimes in those urban areas it can lead to escalation when the cops are out and about like all the time. It can kind of like create those opportunities for police brutality,
Yeah, it takes a toll, really, when you
for
see
sure
it so often,
And I think a lot of cops in the urban areas, like I said before, they don't live in those areas, so they kind of don't have to deal with repercussions of what happens there. So they can kind of terrorize people and not worry about it. And defunding police, or at least lowering their presence in urban communities like that, could help ease a lot of the issues that we have nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. And part of defunding the police too is demilitarizing them, so they don't have all these like riot gear and these, like, I guess,
true,
rubber bullet guns, which I don't think cost that much. And if they properly used it instead of shooting at people's faces and
like directly at them,
like shooting
one of the
at the
protests
ground.
I was at, they were shooting directly at people. They weren't shooting at the ground.
Wow, yeah. No, I've seen so many videos of that too, so I totally believe that. But yeah, this is definitely a defund the police pro podcast. You could take that money, put it in social services or things that they don't even. I feel like police officers don't really want to do.
Healthcare. I think mental health is a huge thing that is completely neglected, and especially defunding the police. I was gonna say like training them about stuff like that, but that's what like defunding them could mean, like putting more money into people that are specialized in certain situations, especially with mental health, like de-escalation and whatnot. Because I think a lot of times cops just, in the Rayshard thing or shooting, they kind of like were just like, all right, I'm gonna shoot him now. Like, I don't think that should be an option most of the time. Like, I don't think they should just resort to shooting someone if they're resisting. They need to de-escalation could save so many lives, and that's, I think, one of the big issues is that the cops just want their way and they want it now, and if someone's not doing it, they'll pull out their gun.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
Yeah, definitely not. I think we are moving to kind of like a better society where that's not a thing. and also just with whole defunding police, like it's not like we're trying to disband the police or make it zero. I mean, like Minneapolis did vote to disband the police at some on like not undetermined time. But like I don't think the whole defund the police movement is really like, or Black Lives Matter movement in general is like to get rid of all police. It's just like to have less police or to have
police. Police are, I think, essential, but the amount of policing that we have in our country and the amount of resources they get is crippling to our society.
Yeah.
And it needs to go back down to normal levels.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a whole nother topic as well, but there needs to also be prison reform at some point where it's just this, because it's like policing where they go to the DA and then they get sentenced and they go into these like for-profit prisons or not even for-profit, and it's just like the system, and then like those prisons don't really do anything to rehabilitate them, and then they're stuck in the system, they can't vote, they can't get jobs, like it's just like it's just ridiculous.
Have you watched 13th on Netflix?
Yeah, I just watched it this weekend, so
yeah,
that's
a pretty eye-opening documentary.
Yeah. Well,
it just shows like the decades of law, of policy that now we're like, that's partially like, that's a lot of the reason why we're in this mess with policing and prison, slave labor, essentially. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Slave labor.
Yeah. I think it was Van Jones, who's like a CNN anchor and everything.
Yeah.
He kind of had a really good point where it's just like racism has like changed and will continue to change, and you might not see it. So it's just like like with like zoning laws where it's just like, hey, you can't build this high rise here because it'll affect our town's character. Like that just is like almost another form of racism. If it's not explicit, like it might not be explicit, they might care about the actual character, but like because you're doing it, you're not allowing like people of color or people from lower incomes to move into your towns. So inherently it is kind of like a racist law, and it's just like I feel like we might take a step forward, but like racism will still adapt or evolve. And we'll still have to fight to eradicate that. But yeah, I guess any other statements on Rayshard Brooks shooting, Black Lives Matter, any other?
Rayshard Brooks should be alive.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. Don't say all lives matter. Because it's obvious, and it's not the point.
Yeah.
It's not the point.
Okay, so like I have a pretty liberal bubble on Twitter, and I would say Facebook too. Like I do have some family members that stray towards like Blue Lives Matter or All Lives.
Same.
I haven't seen like an actual person say like All Lives Matter, which I feel like is good, but like I don't know if that's just me.
I have family members who have said that, but I think they just said it like they posted something. They didn't like say it. They posted something that said All Lives Matter, and it was like in an ignorant way, where they're just trying to like be inclusive, but it's also like, that's wrong, because that's the inclusivity is what we don't need. We're not the whole reason people are saying Black Lives Matter and have been since 2013 is because black people are disproportionately brutalized and killed by police and our law enforcement, and that's the reason we are saying Black Lives Matter. Everybody's affected. All lives matter, yes. I wouldn't say Blue Lives Matter because that's not, no one's blue. You're not a Smurf, right? Yeah. It's a job.
Yeah.
Blue Lives Matter, sure, but like not really, because that's their profession. They are in danger, they have a higher risk job, of course, but I'm not going to say Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think that's idiotic and it's contrary to the movement.
Yeah.
It's mostly contrarians, I think, that say that, or bootlickers.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you're licking boots, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, you have a gross mouth. Stop licking boots.
I saw a meme actually. It's funny. It's that meme where I don't know. It's like an anime and the dude's like looking at a butterfly and he's like,
yeah.
"Is this a whatever?"
Yeah.
It's like a person with a blue line flag.
Oh.
And they're like pointing at a boot and they're saying, "Is this a lollipop?"
Oh, that's great. I wish I saw that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I loved it. I was like, oh shit, this is great. This is one of my favorite memes ever because it's so real.
Yeah, I love that meme though. That's one of my favorite. Like if it's
a good format.
Yeah,
it's a really good format.
Yeah, I guess just to wrap it up. So coronavirus is kind of like, at least where I am in Connecticut, Northeast has been like kind of tame. But like where you're at in California, it's kind of blown up. I guess how is like LA? Like, are more people out and about outside of like protests and everything? But like,
oh yeah,
like, dining more or?
So there are things that have been opening up slowly, like restaurants. I will say, this past weekend I went to a couple places.
How dare you?
I know, right? I actually, like, no joke, I need to get tested. Not because I feel symptoms, just because I need to, like, be aware, right?
Yeah.
Of anything. So I do need to get tested, especially since I did go out twice. Other than protests, I have gone to protests, but I've always worn my mask, washed my hands, had hand sanitizer and stuff. So trying to take all the precautions. I went to a bar in downtown LA, but it was a type of bar which I had never been to before. It was a beer bar, and they had, I guess, wine and kombucha and stuff too, but they give you a key card thing and it's self-serve, so they charge you per ounce.
What? That's cool.
So you like have your card, they tie it to your credit card or whatever, and you tap it and then pour however much beer you want. And they had like, I don't know, probably 50 different types of beer to try. So that was really cool. And everything was like spaced out too, so it wasn't like people were on top of each other or anything. And all the workers were wearing gloves and masks and stuff. So, I mean, trying to be as safe as possible while also not like being closed. Of course, they were open. But I went there, and then I also went on Saturday to a sushi place, and then there again, all the workers had their face masks. It was actually a conveyor belt sushi place, but they didn't have the conveyor belt working. It was only, I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, but they have a conveyor belt that goes around, and typically, not this time, but typically you can just pick out whatever thing you want, and they have like covers over them. But they didn't have that belt going this time. It was just, you had to order it off of like a screen, and then it comes directly to your table on a separate belt. So, and they also had like the tables and the seats spaced out as well. So again, they were open, but still having precautions with distance and workers wearing face masks and whatnot. So, I mean, and I was wearing, obviously, other than like eating and drinking, I had my mask on. So,
right.
It's for me specifically, I guess, I don't know, I could have been exposed, so I need to get checked, but other than that, things are like slowly opening, and the beaches are open and whatnot. I don't know. I think people are just like tired of being cooped up.
Yeah, I think it's
like that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's summer. People want to do things. Like July 4th is coming up, and it's been months, And I think it's just like it hasn't really calmed down here, but like Europe is reopening, so I feel like they're just looking to that and being like, we can do that too. So,
yeah, I know Texas has had a lot of a big spike in cases and everything, and I kind of think I haven't seen much, but I think they took it a lot less serious. I think in LA it's still people are still like wearing their masks and making sure they're social distancing and whatnot, while still slowly opening everything up.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little more careful, but obviously it's never perfect if people are still gonna be out and about.
Well, California was like the first state to do a stay-at-home order, so I felt like they were pretty on top of everything. Versus like Texas, like reopening probably way too early and.
Yeah, when did they reopen? Like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
I don't know. I felt like it was like them and Georgia were the two states that were just like, we're doing this, or Georgia. I felt like was like 3 weeks ago, and they're just like, we're doing haircuts, like people can shop at retails and malls and stuff. And it's just like, why?
Yeah, I haven't seen any haircut things open here either.
Gotcha.
Like, so. But yeah, I know it's crazy because some state, like you said, some states are just like, you're good, we're all good, and then you're not good.
It's done, it's over. We're bored now, so. But yeah, so it's still live as best as you can. Stay safe and not, I guess, interact with a ton of people, but I don't know. It's hard. Like the mental, you gotta think about the mental health too when you're.
Yeah, that is a big part of it. Some people just can't deal with it, especially for as long as it's been going on. That's another thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that wraps it up. Thank you first off, thank you, Joe, for coming on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
Please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, or any mailbag questions, feel free to email us at snowflakesportspod@gmail.com. Thank you and have a good one.
Peace.